मंत्री जी कहते हैं भाई अन्नदाता की बजाय ऊर्जादाता बनाना है, तो आई थिंक पंजाब
ग्रेट जॉब। ओनली ट्रबल इज अगर सारे अन्नदाता ऊर्जादाता बन गए तो अन्नदाता कौन रहेगा? That will be $1 million question which we'll have to answer at some stage. कपूर साहब, इतने लोगों ने इतनी बातें कही, अब आपके क्या विचार हैं, क्या कहना है? And we would all like to listen to your views.
Thank you, Atul ji. You are very rightly said that I have listened all the viewers, co-panelists' views. As far as my views are concerned, what I understand and what I feel that the ethanol blending program, which is governed by the Indian government to achieve E20 or 20% blending of the ethanol with the petrol, I think it is going to be completed within the few days, because already we have achieved 19.7% blending. And as far as ethanol production is concerned, globally as well as in India, what I see that the maize is coming as a primary crop for the production of the ethanol. As you are aware that from last 2-3 years back, sometimes due to government policies, sometimes they are not allowing FCI rice for the production of the ethanol. Sometimes they are stopping using juice and syrup for the production of ethanol. But as far as maize is concerned, it is regularly being used by the industry for the production of the ethanol. I also feel that government may go after completing this E20 program, government may go for the E25 program also, because they want to improve their this blending program and the production of ethanol for the sake of the cost effectiveness through this maize. And maize also need very less water for the cultivation, etc. But my worry is that, sir, you said that farmers are diverting from oil seeds and pulses to maize. But what I feel that as far as the major states of India, Maharashtra, MP, Punjab, Rajasthan, Bihar, they are already producing maize. But in UP also people are producing maize, maybe not at that point, at that level. In future, I think that from UP, farmers may shift from sugarcane crop to maize, and it will impact the working of the sugar plants, because as I already said that the government always changing its policies. Many times they are allowing syrup, many times they are not allowing. So what I think that maize is a better option for the production of ethanol, but maize production and maize during the cultivation higher yield is required, and if government want to increase maize production, they may think of GMO maize, which is having many pros and cons. But as we want to see that every industry should run in a smooth way, the production of maize with the higher yield is the necessity of the hour. And for that, either we should go for the GMO maize, or we should have some other good quality of good variety of maize, which can give you maximum output with a minimum coverage of the land. This is my take, sir.
Thank you. In fact, one of the comment, Kapursa, was that maize consumes much less water for producing ethanol. I will ask Ravi if you have any views on that.
Thank you for the question. You see, generally this debate turns around to be whether sugarcane ethanol or maize ethanol or green ethanol. One thing I must clear before I answer this question, that in India, if we have to run a program of this size, both grains and sugarcane ethanol is required. So both has to coexist together. Even the roadmap for ethanol blending set half of it will come from grains and half of it come from sugarcane. Now the question comes that out of these two, which is more efficient? Both are efficient in terms of environment friendly, energy security, farmer income, both fills both the objective. But between the two, if you ask me, sugarcane ethanol scores far better on all counts. For example, this myth that maize ethanol takes less water is not true. Because just imagine in a hectare you make around 70 tons of sugar cane, which is something around give and take 5,000 liters of ethanol per hectare. And on maize, even if you take 3 crops, 9 tons, roughly around 2,500 liters of ethanol. So even if the water is used more, which is not the 3 times, the sugarcane ethanol is far more water efficient as compared to grain ethanol. So, in terms of land usage, in terms of greenhouse gas emission, sugarcane ethanol scores far better than any of the grain ethanol. But it doesn't mean that it is a fight between sugarcane ethanol versus grain ethanol, because both are required if you have to run 20% ethanol blending program. But if you ask me what should we prioritize, it should be always the sugarcane ethanol from all perspectives.
You're saying that greenhouse emissions as far as ethanol from sugar is concerned is less than that of maize, am I right?
So greenhouse gases reduction, in case if you use 100% sugarcane ethanol, it's around close to 70%. And if you are using maize, it is only 40%. So in terms of greenhouse gas reduction also, sugarcane ethanol scores far higher.
From this now we'll move on to technology side. In fact, I find in UP, quite a few sugar companies have actually gone in for dual feedstock. But I don't see that kind of enthusiasm happening in Maharashtra or Karnataka for that matter. Dalmias have gone in for dual feedstock as well as far as their sugar plants are concerned. So we would like to listen to what is your experience, Kapil, and your company's experience.
So actually, we have a standalone grain distillery. It's not a dual feed, but it is in the same campus. So, I mean, we of course use bagasse for steam requirements for both the distilleries.
This is in UP or Maharashtra?
This is UP, sir.
UP.
So, and UP, the decision of getting into UP first was, of course, because of the raw material availability, where our plant is, the maize belt is very close by. It's also a rice belt, and the proximity to MP and Bihar is almost same. And of course, we had the energy source in-house, which prompted us to, go for this.
So, lack of availability of corn is not allowing units in Karnataka, Maharashtra for this thing, or it's the same time crop arrival, that is the problem.
I think the main problem is the same kind of crop arrival. Both are the kharif crops, which are also the sugarcane period. Here, a lot of bells it gets added to sugarcane. So the sugarcane gets harvested by Feb, March, and that area gets into maize and then gets into a third crop as well. And then they go back to sugarcane for that crop. So that helps for more distilleries to come in, more grain distilleries to come in this belt where it's more rabi prominent than kharif prominent.
No, but then your answer to that is by putting up a separate unit will probably solve that problem. So
Absolutely.
both the distilleries can run at the same time. Avinash, would you like to add to this? And also I would like you to comment on whether India will bite the bullet as far as genetically modified corn is concerned.
I'm not the right person to actually give any
You've
suggestion on
been part
that.
of the government for a very long time and you understand how the government works or doesn't work.
I really don't know where this GM corn or the GM policy is stuck really. Is it the Supreme Court which is kind of holding it, or is it the government or a group of people, the environmentalists who are holding it? But when I was working in ISMA, a lot of farmers used to come and talk to us. And farmer groups are very, very much in favor of getting GM because it's really going to benefit them, increase their yield, increase their returns. So the farmers are very much in favor of that. I believe that there are a few groups which are opposing it because they say that it's not good for the soil, you don't want to consume a genetically modified crop and don't want to eat it. Because if you go to US, I'm sure you must be eating GM cornflakes and all. India is now going to import liquor from US. I'm sure we must have picked up a lot of alcohol from the airport. That's all GM corn or GM whatever is there. So I don't see any reason. I'm not gone into depth. I would be a big votary because it's really going to help the country per se. If US is doing it, why can't India do it? I don't see any particular reason why and where the problem is really. As far as dual-based ethanol plants are concerned in the sugar industry, I was working in ISMA for 12 years, I was there, and some of these policies really came up then and we really pushed for this dual feed because we very sincerely believed in one thing, and that was that the sugar plants really run for 4 months, 5 months, if you were in the southern part of the country, probably for 6 months also, depending on the sugar cane, because you can't store sugar cane, you can't transport sugar cane, so you have that restriction there. And therefore, you didn't have a kind of extra months for the ethanol plant also. And therefore, when the policy came up for using sugar cane directly to make ethanol, then people believe that why can't we kind of continue running our ethanol plants in the off-season. One of the biggest advantage with the sugar industry as compared to the standalone is that you have your own bagasse. And that really saves about 8 rupees, 9 rupees per litre of ethanol. And that's a massive, massive saving when you're talking about very competitive prices in the country. And if you have a dual feed, you will run your ethanol plant 4, 5 months, 6 months on sugar cane or whatever saved molasses that you have, and then continue with the same capacity in the off season. You can have a higher capacity by doing that. Now, obviously, the northern part of the country have the advantage that they have the availability of maize or market rice or broken rice in the period when you don't have sugar cane. That's not an advantage in the southern part of the country. But I don't see that as a reason for the southern part not getting into dual feed, because it's going to cost slightly more, certainly. But I'm sure the advantages would be kind of taking care of that extra storage cost or extra transportation cost if you carry this from some part of the country. Because maize has moved from Bihar to Tamil Nadu, to Andhra, to Punjab, to Haryana in the past. It's still moving in grades. When the harvesting happens, still moves. And remember last year, Kapil's senior, Mr. Pankaj Bastogi, called me one day on the phone, Avinash, are you in Purnia? No, I'm in Delhi. What happened? Well, I have come to Purnia. The CEO of Dalmia is sitting in Purnia to buy maize. That's a big thing. I mean, you see the importance. So, I mean, that is what I'm saying. The dual feed, I personally believe, and I asked you the question in the morning, why are you not getting a dual feed? I got your answer also. So, I personally feel that dual feed or standalone next to your own plant can be a
Now, one byproduct of maize ethanol is DDGS. And we keep hearing a lot about it. It's problems in terms of aflatoxin, marketability, and the damage it is doing to the cattle feed sector or the oilseed sector or the poultry sector. Your comments on that? And how are you addressing the issue of AFLA in DDGS?
90% of the buyers of our corn DDGS do not raise an issue on the aflatoxin. 10%, some people are very concerned. We have supplied corn DDGS to consumers like Godrej directly, who are based in that part of the country also. So aflatoxin is really a concern, and aflatoxin doesn't come from the process. It doesn't come from the chemicals or whatever we use in the process. It is basically in the maize itself. I personally believe that if that same maize is directly or was directly being consumed by the poultry or whatever sector they are using, I don't see any reason for that creating such a big problem. Really, are they killing the poultry? Are they stunting the growth of the poultry? I'm not very sure about that. I'm not an expert on that. But if you ask me a personal question, 90% of the traders who pick up the corn from us do not have that problem. Yes, we were also sending it to Nepal, being very close to Viratnagar and the Nepal border. There was a problem in Nepal. Nepal stopped taking corn DDGS because of the aflatoxin issue.
Sir, would you like to add to this? Because DDGS तो वहाँ पे भी बन रहा होगा.
Definitely, this is a problem as regards the Bihar. The best quality available corn in the country is there. So, but we do have this kind of problems. As in Punjab, we have got a summer crop, which is a water guzzler, which the corn is having a high moisture content as high as 25 to 35%. So we have installed the dryers, but we do have this aflatoxin problem, and only we can say, as rightly said, Avinash, that it is in the corn, it's not in the process. So, but we don't have that kind of a good quality of corn available in the state of Punjab, because we are already deficient in this type of raw material. Whatever material is available, whether it's available in UP or maybe in Madhya Pradesh, maybe in Rajasthan, or maybe in damaged condition. So we have to buy and process it. But I think with the passage of time, this complaint, you can say, if you go a year back, was much more highlighted by the poultry or the cattle industry. But now, the day-to-day operations, I think they have changed their some formulations or gone with some kind of other products which are having a very low content of aflatoxin, and they are mixing it with that, balancing the total aflatoxin, you can say, the required for that formulation. But now we are not finding any difficulty in marketing maize DDS as we faced last year. So I think with the passage of time, the cattle industry, the poultry industry has also gone wise, because it's the most cheap source as regards the protein percentage is concerned, as regards the soya or as regards the rice DDS is concerned. So the percentage cost per unit of protein is the lowest in the maize. So might be they have changed the formulation, and the total aflatoxin percentage required in the cattle or poultry field have been managed by other ingredients which have got a very low aflatoxin protein. I think with the passage of time, the farmers, the industry will be going intelligent. They will have better practice for procuring and this storing of this maize and the processing part of it. I think this is not a big problem that cannot be tackled. It will not be going to last for very long.
Agreed. So it's a temporary blip which will get sorted out over a period of time. I would also like you to comment on, I am told, different area maize or different quality maize gives different returns or different yields of ethanol. Your comment on that? How much could be the
Difference is very minor. Difference on the percentage of starch content available in the maize. The Bihar maize had about 61, maybe 59 to 1%. Just 5 liters to 10 liters per ton of this, per liter of per ton available. There is not a very big difference. So the DDS percentage goes up. If the starch content is converted into ethanol, the DDS percentage is more. Though there is a difference, but I think I agree with Naji, the government should consider, and the environmental farmers should consider growing of the GM, which can have all the problems tackled and we can have the yield, much better yields. The percentage of starch in the GM may going up to 63 to 65%. And with that, there will be low percentage of requirement of the all other things. So GM is the most, you can say, required crop as at present to feed the country as regards this ethanol requirement is concerned.
I'd like Avinashi also to comment on this because he is coming from Bihar and he probably would not be facing this kind of a problem because Bihar corn seems to be very good. Your comments?
Yes, I mean, as Mittal Sahib said that basically it is the starch which matters, and starch we extract and convert that into sugar and convert that into ethanol. So broadly speaking, 1% starch is equivalent to about, as you mentioned, about 5 to 7 or 8 liters of ethanol. That is the numbers that you can get. And I remember a story, I mean, when we started purchasing maize from the market and traders used to ask us, used to say, well, specification batao. Specification में यार मुझे स्टार्च 60% के आसपास चाहिए. If it's going to be less than 60%, we're going to make a deduction on the price agreed. बस अब ये स्टार्च क्या होता है आज तक तो सुना ही नहीं. Because earlier maize starch did not matter for the poultry sector or for the starch making sector. I'm not very sure. But when we started buying this starch, kitna hai wala concept start hua hai. And that is what now the government is looking at. Whatever interactions I've had with the maize institutes and all, they are number one looking at developing seeds which will be less in aflatoxin. I don't know whether it's going to happen in a year or two, but that is one thing that they're trying to do. And two, they're looking at starch content specifically for use by the ethanol sector.
Well, the biggest problem as far as corn is concerned, our post-harvest handling of corn is not all that great. We depend totally on the sun drying and we harvest the corn at 20% plus moisture. Internationally, corn goes through big dryers and all, it can drop down the moisture levels to 11-12%. Now, we move on to policies. And who better to talk on that? Ravi, my question is a higher price for ethanol justified going forward? Till now it was relevant, but going forward, would it be relevant? And can we see a lot more of parity between sugar ethanol and corn ethanol going forward, or this disparity would remain? And I would also like you to comment on whether corn thrust is going to be damaging to the oilseed sector and the pulses as well.
So I'll take the question one by one. See, India is a unique situation because our raw material prices are fixed by the government. So the correlation has to be there. You cannot have a situation that your raw material price keeps on increasing and the ethanol prices do not go up. I think this has to be a fundamental fact that the ethanol prices will continue to move up as the MSP keeps on growing. Like for example, today I hear that a lot of people who have even applied for pea molasses ethanol are shifting because the pea molasses ethanol prices have not gone up. Because the sugarcane juice prices have not gone up, where FRP has gone up. So this relation has to be maintained. Now a lot of people ask me question that what if the crude prices fall down, then how will the government will give the ethanol prices? You see, we basically forget the fundamentals of green energy. You cannot compare green energy with the carbon energy. Because when you are comparing the both, you have to add the environmental cost of the carbon energy. You know, it has health effect. There was a lot of studies done that because of the carbon emission, how much extra money is spent on the health. So you have to add all those costs when you are with the carbon cost, when you are comparing it with green energy. And if you do that cost matrix, definitely green energy scores far higher. So this comparison कि crude इतना कम हो जाएगा तो ethanol का prices कैसे बढ़ाएंगे is absolutely misplaced. I think it is, we need to change our mindset there, because when you are using carbon, then Delhi ke pollution mein AQI से 300 से 500 होगा. So that is one part of it. So that relation has to maintain. If you are increasing your agriculture inputs price year on year, ethanol price is bound to increase. As far as area shift from meals to oils and pulses is concerned, I think it is inevitable. It is unfortunate but inevitable. Farmers are very smart today, very, very smart. Farmer will see his commercial economics. He is not going to bother whether you will get soybean meal as protein for your poultry or nothing. He will just see what it is like. Today, for example, soybean, 1 ton yield, right? Versus corn in a water available situation can be 5 ton but 4 ton easily, right? कहाँ तो उसको 1 लाख रुपए मिलेगा और कहाँ वो सोयाबीन 42,000 टन में बिकेगा. He is going to shift. So this is something which is fundamental, which will be the reality and will happen. So the government has to make the conscious effort. What does government wants to do? A balance is required. Not that, again, I'm also repeating, I'm saying the same thing. Both raw material for ethanol has to coexist, because we do not also have sugar cane to do 20% blending or above it. So sugar cane and grains have to coexist. But this optimism has to be maintained. Otherwise, you might be in a situation that on one hand you are having surplus of sugar and on the other hand you are importing grains. Thank you.
To put the record straight, when Niti Aayog, and I'm sure Arunashji was probably one of the ones who was interacting a lot with the Niti Aayog, they came up with the roadmap that 10.16 billion liters would be required to achieve 20% blending by 2025. And the ratio of that was supposed to be 5.5 billion liters from sugar and the balance from grain. Now the situation is such that almost 60% is coming from the grain sector and less than 40% from sugarcane. So one suggestion which somebody from the government was actually giving was, why not fix a percentage to be supplied by X sector and Y sector? So that is something which is a food for thought. Anyway, Kapoor Sahab, what would you like to add to whatever has been talked and your views and comments?
Thank you, Atulji. Sir, what Ravi ji shared, it's true that the area of the oil field and your pulses will be get affected with the maize production, maize field production. And as far as the policy is concerned, or you can say as far as the dual feed system is concerned for the distillery, because of the policy of the government, people are afraid whether they will go with the dual feed production of ethanol or not, because there are very fast fluctuations in the government policy. We don't know next day morning what type of policy decision will come. So the industrialists are very much afraid of that. Many people, those who are having, those who are allowed to use juice or syrup, they are using syrup during the season and keeping the molasses, the heavy molasses for the running the distillery in the off season. But as far as the Kapil ji also told that many industries, they are opting for the separate plant, standalone plant for the grain instead of going for the multi-feed or the dual feed. So we need to see that government policy should be firm and steady so that the industrialists can take a decision about the investment of the investment and the capacity enhancement of the distillery. That is the requirement of the hour.
Thank you. Now, we'll open this.
We'll open this to question and answer from the audience. Couple of questions we can take before we wind up the session. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, please. And kindly identify yourself
This is Anup from Sukhim. Atulji, there's a question to you actually. We've heard of sugar and maize and rice perspective. Can I have your perspective on how the oilseed industry or the oil industry will react to the entire intersectionality that is developing?
Very difficult question. In fact, the oilseed industry is actually struggling big time. But what we see, there is a seriousness as far as the government is concerned of ensuring that the sector starts getting built up. In fact, you saw 20% or 22% import taxes getting raised. It was very unusual. And now also the current agriculture minister is saying that we will jack up the import duties still further. So all this is going to send the right kind of signals to the farmers. But in spite of all this, the problem is the farmers are still not able to realize minimum support price, neither for mustard nor for soya. And the challenge is, all these people sitting here, challenge is here because DDGS is now selling very, very competitively at 13, 14 rupees and rice DDGS at 16, 17 rupees. So what we be telling the government is rice DDGS may go away because it's not something which is going to be there indefinitely, but maize is there, going to be there. So you will have to find a strong outlet for maize. Otherwise, ensuring that the oil prices keep moving up and meal prices keep collapsing, it's not going to work because almost 50-55% of the value comes from meal. So in this scenario, I hope the decision makers understand that and something gets done, and that would be actually good for the maize sector, maize ethanol sector also, if they can start realizing a much better price for their DDGS. So I'm hopeful the future looks bright and interesting. As far as palm is concerned, the palm can grow big time.
Hi sir, good morning. This is Harsh Soni from Greenleaf. Sir, this question is to the panel itself, to Avinash sir, Ravi sir, because you guys are more close to the policy making. I just wanted to know that when the ethanol program started, we had the options of various feedstocks, and it was a initial level when the government wanted to try and test everything. They wanted to boost the program, and they gave all the incentives in terms of the capital expenditure, in terms of the feedstock prices for using and making ethanol. But today we have come to a stage where we are about to reach 20% blended. And will this dual policy or the different feedstock policy going to be lasting forever? It's going to create, ripples. The different industry experts are definitely going to pitch in for higher prices for their own feedstocks and continue to lobby accordingly, considering the other feedstock as an inferior or a superior. Will there be sanity that we have a one feedstock policy for the ethanol going forward? And till what level, as in Brazil we talk about 70% is what the efficiency ratio of the ethanol is. Are we going to have that sort of structure coming in India soon or not?
You. Ravi did not get the question right. Let me answer your question. In fact, what we had suggested, and in fact at the Chini Mandi conference also I said, it doesn't make sense that 28 rupees rice, you bring it down to 22 and also reduce the ethanol price. Sensible thing would have been, and that was the best time, because sugar industry was clamoring for higher realization for cane juice ethanol. So what I was saying, and I said it from this forum as well, so why not have a single price for all the three? Maize at around 72, from the same rice also at 72, and cane juice also around 72. And do not reduce the price of rice from 28 or whatever to 22, that doesn't make sense. So you ensure that there's an even playing field. But obviously, government takes decision in their own wisdom.
I mean, I wanted to ask if there is any plan which the government is thinking of bringing about this rationalization in the policy meeting to have one price for all the feedstocks of ethanol, or it's not under consideration at all?
No, I don't know what the government will do, but couple of things we need to understand when policies are made by the government. Number one, we have to also understand that you cannot keep on increasing the ethanol price to 80, 90, 95 or whatever. I mean, there has to be a rationale or a limit to that. And therefore, the story lies in kind of controlling the raw material prices at reasonable level. What happened in the last couple of years? I mean, I remember when I left ISMA about 3 years back, the price of ethanol from sugarcane juice is the same till date. Has the sugarcane price not increased? I mean, you can't, as a government, you can't keep changing your policies off and on. You assured the industry that the price of ethanol will be linked to the raw material price. And that is why you have 6 different prices. But going forward, that cannot continue forever. No? You can't have 6 different prices, people fooling you and saying that I'm using X and therefore my production is I will get this. It's not going to continue to that. You can't keep on relying on FCI rice unless the government wants to take out its extra burden out and use it somewhere. That's a different issue totally. Now, I mean, if I go into the policies of ethanol in the last about, say, 4 years, every year you have seen new policies coming in and confusing the industry. But as Atulji said, I 100% agree. Going forward, we need to reduce the number of prices. Can we reduce it from 6 to 2 or 6 to 3? I mean, that is how you need to go forward. Having said that, any renewable energy anywhere in the world needs hand-holding for 10, 12, 15 years. Anywhere you look at, any policy, look at the Brazilian biofuel policy, look at the American ethanol policy, look at the solar policy in India, or the hydrogen, any policy that you see, you need to handhold, you need to subsidize, you need to give incentives. Then only this is going to happen. But you cannot continue forever. As I mentioned, ethanol is still a very, very infant industry. I mean, it has really taken off, I would say, after 2018, 2019. Before that, it was kind of struggling at 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%. But now it has kind of taken off. You need a few years of more support and control and help by the government of India. And after that, a lot of nationalizations.
Thank you very much. I think we'll have to wind up here because इसकी जंगी तलवार अभी हमारे साथ पहले नाच रही है. Thank you very much. We had a very, very interesting session. And for me too also it was a great learning session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, we love the participation through the session, the questions, the queries. I know that the momentum we built up, many of you might have queries. Our esteemed speakers, our panelists would be available to you to talk to you offline as you would need them. Right now, I invite each and every one of you to join us in felicitating all our esteemed panelists up on stage. I would like to take the pleasure of inviting Mr. Vijay Srishimal to kindly join us. Mr. Vijay Srishimal from KN Resources. Sir, please to join us up on stage. And Mr. Vijay Srishimal will now, on behalf of all of us, present each of our esteemed panelists with a token of appreciation, a potted plant, keeping with the theme of sustainability. So, I invite Mr. Vijay Srishimal to kindly start with presenting these mementos. Firstly, to our moderator for this fabulous session, let's have a huge round of applause for Mr. Atul Chaturvedi. Thank you so very much, sir. To Mr. Ravi Gupta. Thank you so very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please join in an applause to Mr. Avinash Verma. Thank you so very much, sir. To Mr. Kapil Nema. Thank you so much, sir. To Mr. Rajendra Mittal. Thank you so very much, sir. And finally to Mr. Gautam Kapoor.
10 लोग हैं, प्लांट एक ही है। हम यही कर रहे हैं कि पिछले सेशन
Thank you so very much, sir. I invite Mr. Vijay Shishma to kindly join as the panelists for a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, for a family session, it has been a global trade and policy shift. And we love the participation from each and every one of you, and we're looking forward to keeping that momentum going on through the day. Thank you once again to all our esteemed panelists.
that is fine.
And with that, we are ready to dive right today into our next business session, a very interesting panel discussion on poultry market dynamics, trends, trades, and future prospects. Friends, the Indian poultry industry plays a very crucial role in maize consumption, making its market dynamics integral to the grain trade. This session now will dissect emerging trends, trade flows, and the future outlook of the poultry industry. I would now like each and every one of you to join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists for the session. I will start by inviting our moderator for the session, Advocate Supreme Court of India, techno-legal expert, IPR and contracts. Let's welcome Mr. Vijay Sardana. Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Our panelists are joining us on stage now. Welcome, sir. And as Mr. Sardana is up on stage, I take pleasure in inviting our esteemed panelists. We have amongst us Mr. Franklin Manuel, country lead at USSEC India. Let's welcome him up on stage. Welcome, sir. We also have amongst us Mr. Rajesh Reddy, Managing Director of SR Hatcheries. Mr. Rajesh Reddy, please do join us. Thank you for joining us, sir. We also have amongst us Mr. Harish Batra, Secretary, Agro Innovators Millet Promotion Association. We'd like to welcome him up on stage. We also have amongst us Mr. Rahul Khatri, Treasurer of the Poultry Federation of India. We'd like to welcome you on stage, sir. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Sandeep Guha, South Asia Commercial Leader Distribution for Bunga, India. Welcome, sir. We'd also like to welcome Dr. Anup Kalra, member of CLFMA of India. Welcome, sir. And we'd like to welcome Mr. Ricky Thapar from IB Group and Mr. Mahesh Nayak, Procurement Manager, Rocket. Please do join us up on stage, gentlemen. A warm welcome to each and every one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, those in the audience, let's give all our esteemed panelists a nice warm round of applause as they are now readying themselves for an immersive discussion on poultry market dynamics, trends, trade, and future prospects. And as the panelists are here, please do take a seat, gentlemen. We have two presentations from our panelists, and I'd like to invite Mr. Franklin Manuel and then subsequently Mr. Rajesh Reddy to lead with their presentation. We have Mr. Vijay Sardana, sir, on stage, and sir, I request you to kindly take. I'd like to invite Mr. Harish Batra. Sir, if you are here, please do join us on stage. Once again, Mr. Harish Batra. So, we have our panelists on stage, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to hand it over to our moderator, Mr. Vijay Sardana. Please do take it forward.
Thank you, Rohan. I think since yesterday we are discussing very important. Whatever. So since yesterday, friends, we were discussing about maize and millets, and one of the biggest consumption market is poultry. So as instruction from the organizers, they told me to make a small brief presentation. Then I will request my two fellow panelists to have a brief presentation what they are thinking, and based on those inputs, we will start panel discussion. So I'll come back. I will not take much of the time because this is not a poultry seminar, it's a maize seminar. But some of the challenges which we have to focus on right now,
what is happening with the poultry, it has a direct impact on the prices of maize. During a tea break and outside this hall, the discussion was that why prices of maize are coming down when the ethanol demand is going up. Unfortunately, we all know that poultry is not in a very good shape. So I will quickly run through what are the challenges in poultry and what is likely to happen. Please keep remembering that on 2nd April, whether Trump will be able to force government of India to reduce the tariff on poultry. That will be another big setback for poultry, but maybe an opportunity for ethanol, because that you may have further made availability there. I am not going into too much detail on technical side, just from a trading point of view, and those who are interested in maize, just have an overview of poultry. Poultry we classify not just the chicken which we have, but all those birds which are in consumption. Already America has started exporting turkey to India and demand is picking up. So keep that factor in mind. And overall, poultry is one of the very unique sectors with the least capital investment you can create employment. That is another positive about poultry. If you look into globally, it is about $360 billion market, and that is why Trump is very keen that globally the poultry trade should liberalize. Because if you have a surplus poultry, where you will dump it? And it is a big market for their own corn and as well as soybean. So poultry, if you see backward linkage, soybean as well as corn. So if poultry suffers, there is an indirect impact on corn as well as soybean, and these are also important crop for US. So they will have an implication on the global trade and prices of these important commodities. We have to look from that angle, and moreover, by 2030, the overall protein intake, animal protein intake, 47 to 50% will be from poultry. Look at also from Indian perspective, why suddenly poultry became so popular in Indian household, for two simple reasons. This meat is the easiest way to cook. Household gadgets which you have in your kitchen, you need special gadgets to make pieces of mutton. We don't consume pork because our trade channel does not handle pork. Fish is another popular, but again the safety and hygiene of fish is important aspect. So what we are happening in this country is we are all going into roadside slaughterhouse, get the poultry dressed in front of us, and then those poultry can also be further chopped into small pieces even at household. So the convenience of handling poultry is actually making poultry very popular even in Indian household system. Growth is likely to be there, population growth, which is innovative. Then we are talking about health and nutrition. There is a demand for protein in this country. And then we are talking about technological advancements, whether it is in field, whether it is in breed, whether it is healthcare, housing, everywhere there are advancements happening in this sector. One of the biggest concerns which we have to look at is disease outbreak. I'll not go into detail, but if you are dealing with your poultry segment, your buyers, you know how seriously they are suffering from this. Then there are supply chain issues. Because one side we are talking about maize traveling all the way from Bihar to south, then there are issues of soybean availability, then there is a club with DDGS. So this whole supply chain disturbances are becoming very complex, and now with the tariff game coming in, it will further disrupt. So we have to be a little careful. And then there are environmental issues with poultry. For example, animal welfare, cage issues, birds should not be in cage, and there is a constant campaign by NGOs on these issues, which will have a serious implication down the line because society is becoming sensitive to these environmental issues. International trade, as we know that, if you look at the poultry world trade map, India is the only big country in the world where there is no import and export of poultry, and this is actually bothering Trump. He says this is why this whole big market of largest market of the world is isolated from the world trade, and this is because of tariff and other non-tariff issues. And that is where the target is. That's what I'm saying 2nd April is very crucial for 3-4 crops. One is poultry, second is soybean, third is corn, fourth is cotton. Just see that what happens on 2nd. If these are isolated from the Trump's tariff game plan, we are safe. Otherwise, there will be too many turbulences there. Then we are talking about trade volume. This is growing because logistically it is very easy to handle. And then there are trade dynamics, which we have to look at it. Export forecasting, we are looking at that it is increasing because of raw material availability. Future, market is going to expand both from the convenience point of view as well as the cost of poultry meat comparative to any other meat is low. So that is why there is economic dimensions. You can make large number of products. The product diversification, if you look into whether it is a hotel industry or ready-to-eat consumption, poultry is cheaper as well as easy to manufacture. Plus, there is another issue. If you look into when we are talking about jhatka, halal, and all those complications, technically, poultry is a secular meat. So there is one way to look from that angle. And then we are talking about technological integration starting from housing till retailing. At every level, there are technological interventions which are happening. As I mentioned, these are disease issues which we have to look at it. And then price fluctuations, we have to look at cold storage infrastructure, which is another big challenge in India. That's why there is a whole lot of roadside slaughtering. There is no preservation happening. Unhygienic condition in poultry is well known to consumers, and that is why environmental and animal welfare issues are becoming serious, and consumer is becoming aware, but at the same time there is a huge misinformation about poultry. So that is one way to look at in this aspect. So just a small forecasting, because of poultry, there is going to be a feed demand increase, and when there is a demand for feed is going to go up, demand for maize will go up, because 60% is maize consumption in feed. So those who are interested in maize, this slide is for them. So we are talking about something 45 to 50 million tons down the line 5 years. It means we are talking about 30 million tons of maize requirement only and only for poultry, and then you add up another 15 to 20 million tons by ethanol. Now we are talking of crop diversification. Who will encroach in which area? We have to look from that angle. So in conclusion, I will say that survival or the future of maize directly related to future of poultry. So if poultry is growing, maize demand will continue to grow. But one important aspect of lesson which we have seen from last 2 years, the chances of dropping maize prices too low is difficult, because if prices drop, then there is an existing market of ethanol which picks up. So thankfully, the maize will remain profitable for the farmer. Now it is going to be fluctuating between poultry and ethanol, who will survive and who will continue to do that. So there will be a lot of dynamics which we will continue to discuss, and I'm sure in this panel discussion you will have more interesting inputs. Now I will request my friend from USEC to share his thoughts, because they will also give us a global perspective. Now we all are looking at America, they are looking at India as a market. So what they are planning for India and the world market, if USEC can share some of those inside stories. Francis, please, over to you. Come.
Thank you, Sardanaji. It's always an honor task to stand here when industry stalwarts have already spoken. So they have set up a benchmark and we need to justify the momentum. But here I am to try a bit. Good noon to all distinguished dignitaries present here. I am Franklin Manuel. I'm a part of US Soybean Export Council as its country lead. For people who might not know us, the US Soybean Export Council focuses on differentiating, elevating preference and attaining market access for the use of soy for US soy for human consumption, aquaculture and livestock feed in 80 plus countries internationally. We represent the soy supply chain including US soy farmers, processors, traders, commodity shippers, merchandisers, allied agribusinesses and organizations. So through my trading tenure with the Cargills and Winmars of our world, poultry has always intrigued me with its super volatile nature, its S&D, its seasonality, and the extreme crust and troughs it can take you through. And also because of the many facets it touches us in our jobs day in and day out. So before we just go to the gist of the presentation, I'll zoom out a bit on the overall per capita consumption of animal products in some countries, and it's interesting to see that India remains the smallest of the lot. For a country with humongous number of mouths to feed, This situation for people in this hall brings plethora of opportunities that lies ahead for the next 10, 20, 30 years going forward. We are minuscule still, and that means the trajectory ahead will be an interesting roller coaster ride. In the next slide, I tried to correlate the China and the Indian chicken consumption, and it's interesting to see that India today, with a per capita income of $2,500, with China through the 70s to 2000 showed exactly. This resonates the same growth and pattern that we showed in our country from the 90s to 2020. What's interesting is the rapid growth of the chicken meat consumption in China versus that of India is at similar levels of per capita GDP growth. Per capita chicken consumption in China increased almost sevenfold over a 30-year period, that's from 1970 to 2001, from 1 kilogram per person to 8 kgs. In contrast, India only sees a twofold to threefold increase over the last 30 years, from about 1 kg per person to 3.5 at the same per capita levels. In fact, the per capita consumption remains very low in India relative to China, where it's now close to 12 kgs per person compared to India's number of 4 to 5 kgs. Part of this is primarily due to the high prevalence of the vegetarian diets that prevail in our country. I tried to zoom in a bit now on the essential proteins in our country and the anomaly of a consumption against the threshold, which is quite bothering. Against 180 eggs recommended by National Institute of Nutrition, we currently consume 103. Against a recommendation of 11 kgs of meat, we consume 6.9 kgs per year and 5.4 kgs broiler per year. We are just 60% of our protein requirement, and that is also 72% coming from cereals. The constituent raw materials, if you see, almost two-thirds of India's consumption of animal feed marketing year of 2022-23 consisted of corn, wheat and soybean meal. Corn was the commodity most consumed in animal feed, making up to 40.49%, that's 20.6 million metric tons of the total consumption, with wheat and soybean meal ranging from 12.77 and that's 6.5 million metric tons to 6.2 million metric tons respectively, followed by rapeseed and cottonseed meal. The feed production and projections going forward, and this data comes from our friends in the industry and various trade promotion councils. It moved, and the broiler feed demand moved from 2022-23 from 16 million tons to a forecasted number of 18.6 million tons in 2025-26. The layer feed demand rose from 11.9 million tons to 15.9 million tons in 2025-26. Followed by obviously the cattle feed demand, which is the organized sector, and the aqua feed demand. The broiler output, very interesting. 2019-20 to 2020, we saw the total broiler dues in per month in millions around 393 million. That is supposed to move to 520 millions. And the demarcation is clearly moving from 69% from 2019 to 84% in 2025. And under the regular farming, it's reducing actually from 31% to 16%. Layer outlook under the same time frame, the birds in million, the birds in lay from million moves from 310 to 415 in 2025-26, and the egg production per year billion moves from 91.25 to 124. This is a humongous growth, and that too in 2025. I will not touch the challenges since Sardanaji has always touched those topics, but we obviously, the industry is facing two tough times related to escalating feed costs, climate changes, land availability, AMR issues, disease outbreaks, so on and so forth. The future ahead obviously lies through securing our biodiversity and biosecurity and disease prevention, optimizing our nutrition and feed efficiency in poultry, integrated poultry operations, promoting sustainable practices in poultry production, which is the call of the hour, connecting technology for modern poultry farming, and investing in human capital. These are some of the sustainable practices that my friends are already following in industry. AI is the new fad, and it's gonna percolate more in the industry going forward and bring more efficiency and effectiveness in the industry. Summing up it quickly, poultry being the most organized sector in the animal culture now bags second position in the egg production and the sixth position in the broiler production in the global poultry production charts, and grew at a compound annual rate of 8.15%. With layer population around 300 million, broiler population at 5 billion annual placements, breeder placements at 49 billion, supported by backyard poultry at 30 million, resulting in approx 32 million metric tons of poultry feed being required. Expected layer production in 2025-26 would be 327 million and 5.5 billion broilers, which would require 33.73 million metric tons. The average per capita consumption of meat is still around 7 kgs and eggs around 103 per person per annum in India. This is several folds lower than the global average of 16 kgs poultry meat. Just because a lot of you come from the trading background and trading acumen, this might be something interesting for you. Even with the genetic engineering scenario, the corn yields move from the current 3.5 to 5.6 by 2050. This is the data backed by FS, Foreign Agricultural Services, USDA. And in the soybeans, even with a genetic engineered scenario, the yield moves from 0.9, which is the current yield, to 1.9 tons per hectare. This is a report which was a bomb that got dropped last week by FS, Foreign Agricultural Services, USDA, and you can see the humongous growth and perspectives of corn and soybean going forward against a moderate income levels and against inflated income levels in India. At 20,
please.
Pardon?
Quick.
Pardon?
If you can quickly wind up.
Yeah, I think that's the last slide. So maybe this would be a food for thought, and I will not steal the thunder from this panel, and maybe the points will be discussed later. Thank you.
Now we are at the
Hello everybody, good afternoon. I am here to present the data about the poultry sector. I think since morning we have heard a lot about maize and the associated things. I am here to present the data about the maize requirement for poultry sector. I request everybody to go through this, please have a look at this data. This data was, since morning, I think some 2-3 times this was discussed, almost accurate. The only thing, I think poultry sector is growing at around 10 to 12% per year. The demand is almost, supply is almost matching it. But fuel, ethanol, it was in 2022 and 2023, it was 0.5 million tons. For 2017, it will be somewhere around 14.5. This is the major concern. This is the maize demand and availability slide. Average maize selling price in Jan 2020 it was somewhere around 18 to 1850. Now it's currently trading at around 25,000 per ton. Possible solutions, short term, 0 to 3 years. We request the government of India to look at to allow duty-free import of non-GM maize. And the next big thing is requesting the government to stop maize exports for the next 3 years so that we will have sustainable maize quantity here. Also, request to allow import of GM maize for ethanol sector only, so that the local manufacturing of maize, whatever is happening, we can use it for poultry and other services. For long term, again, in the previous panelist, as our elders were discussing, we also work for cultivation of GM crops in India, maize GM crops in India. This is it, because we had short term. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajesh. Now we will come straight to the future of poultry and how it is going to impact Makkah. I am not going to history. I will just come. We have seen all the developments which are taking place. Country's population is going up, demand is going up. Without Makkah, there is no poultry. So all those things are well known to everyone in this world. Now first I will ask non-poultry people how they look at the whole dynamics. Because poultry people will have their own biases towards poultry. So let me have a very neutral view to start with, and then we do the corrections with the help of poultry people. So Sandeep ji, first with you. What is your thought about what is likely to happen in your assessment with poultry feed demands down the line 5 years?
So globally, being in Bangi, when we assess the various demand centers, India emerges as one of the biggest demand centers for the feed industry globally. And when we talk about feed in India, it's mostly propelled and supported by the poultry. And when we look at poultry, we have two bifurcations. We have the bifurcation of broiler and the layer. And we are very optimistic when we look at this, because we believe that by 2030, we are looking at a estimated 70 million tons of feed industry in India, which will be mostly driven by poultry. So around 60% will be driven by poultry. With obviously, as you said, Doctor, that the population demographic and the spending power and obviously the change in dietary habits will obviously push this drive towards protein, and we have been seeing that there are a lot of people the consumers are switching to protein-based diets, and India being one of the cheapest producers of protein with chicken and egg. If you look at our neighboring countries, we are still by far the cheapest in terms of the price per kilo or unit of egg and meat, chicken meat. So this would be a big sector, and I believe that there's a decent, significant headroom for growth. And the way it is, the way we are looking at the kind of investment coming up, and the companies, the top companies growing, and the shift happening from the backyard to more structured industry, I see a lot of growth and a lot of promise in this industry.
So this is what prospective cheapest meat demand is likely to go on. On the other side, when we are looking into the overall process, I will now take it to Maize.
From your perspective, as you look at the processing of maize, which comes into a lot of value-added products, how do you look at whether maize will be available to you or there is going to be competition between you and the poultry?
Volume.
Hello. I cannot say it is the competition between the poultry and the starch. Now it is a competition between the ethanol, poultry and the starch industry. So if you see the dynamics currently, I feel there is already the competition, and by seeing the requirement, the demand side and the production side, there is always been a gap. We have the area which will remain as it is, although we will start to increase our production. But at the same time, by seeing the increment in the requirement of the demand side, poultry which is growing about 6 to 7% on a yearly basis, starch I cannot say because starch for the starch we use only the right commodity which we cannot replace with anything. So from my point of view, it is already in the competition and we face the problem with the shortage of the and that will continue. So we have to think like whether the GM corn will come or whether the GM corn will be allowed to the ethanol industry. That will have some like a solution as of now what we can do.
As far as starch is concerned, you mentioned there are a whole lot of alternates available. You have a cassava starch, you have potato starch, you have maize starch.
But if you see the cassava production in India, how much it is? So how to think about the production which is been for the corn, which has been highly available. We were having a sufficient stock till the time the ethanol industry has been coming. So that is the best product or the raw material which can be used. Now we have to think for the alternate products, so it's a down the line, it's a big journey through the other alternate sources. So currently we have to think about what is been available and how it can be allocated, which will be helpful for all the industry. So instead of having a fight, we should be sufficiently big. Availability is the major thing. Everyone should have the sufficient availability so that everyone can survive there. That makes sense.
Rahul, coming to you. मुर्गी वाले आजकल खुश होंगे क्योंकि रेट दाम नीचे चला गया। मुर्गी के किसान खुश होंगे क्योंकि मक्के के दाम नीचे जा रहे हैं। आपको क्या लगता है, आप तो पीएफआई के करता हो, तो इस समय जो हालात हैं और आने वाले दिनों में हम जो पिछले 3-4 साल में देख रहे हैं कोविड के बाद से कि लगातार मक्के के दाम ऊपर जा रहे थे, अब नीचे जा रहे हैं। किस लेवल पे पोल्ट्री का किसान कंफर्टेबल होता है मक्के को लेके कि इसके ऊपर थोड़ा भारी पड़ रहा है? क्या विचार है पोल्ट्री वाला?
See, basically poultry sector is one of the very few sectors in India which has had a very substantial growth without any support from the government. And that growth is by far due to the quality of protein and the price at which that protein is accessible to the population of our country. And the current surge in maize prices due to its diversion in ethanol has a very adverse effect on our poultry farmer and the entire poultry sector. So obviously a dip in prices on the maize would have a beneficial impact on poultry sector, and the CAGR we are looking at today, which is almost up to 7%, would improve and the consumption would also improve. So the quality of protein that poultry is delivering to the country is something we should look forward to, and these prices, the maize prices we are looking at, they should be at a substantial level that the maize farmer also has some benefit and the poultry sector also sustains. Because any sustainability issue due to the upward trend of maize would have very devastating effect on not just poultry sector but on food security of the country. So levels are around 20-25, it should not exceed 25. Above 25 is also a very high figure. So a conservative figure would be 20-22. But again, the prices of poultry, they are not defined. Since we are producers, so we cannot define the prices of poultry we produce. It's all market dynamics. So getting to a particular figure for maize or any other raw material ingredient for that sort would be a very tough call.
इसका मतलब ये है कि जो इथेनॉल वाले हैं किसान पहले उनको देना पसंद करेगा फिर आपके पास आएगा, क्योंकि वो 26-27 तक देने को तैयार है और आप कह रहे हो 25 के ऊपर भारी पड़ता है. So this is going to be one interesting. Now coming to Ricky, you are one of the largest consumer of makka in the country. My question to you is that when demand is increasing, आपका इथेनॉल की डिमांड बढ़ रही है, कंजम्पशन मक्का वहाँ भी जा रहा है, पोल्ट्री फार्मर्स भी और पोल्ट्री इंटीग्रेटर्स भी काफ़ी अपना एक्सपेंशन कर रहे हैं. What efforts poultry industry is doing to expand the production or productivity of मक्का? क्योंकि अभी तो किसान के पास जो था वो दे रहा था. पोल्ट्री इंडस्ट्री जो सबसे बड़ी कंज्यूमर है, आपकी तरफ से ऐसा क्या एफर्ट होगा ताकि सप्लाई बढ़े और रेट ना बढ़े?
Good afternoon everyone. Myself Ricky Thakur, I am Joint Secretary for Poultry Federation of India, and I am also Vice President at North Zone, IB Group, which is one of the largest poultry irrigation company in India. If we talk about poultry in India, we are second largest in egg producers and fifth largest in broiler producers. If we talk about figures, poultry industry in India, 5.5 billion broilers are placed annually per year. If we talk about layers, it's 300 million layers placement is there. And when we talk about poultry breeders, it's around 45 million. There is backyard poultry also, especially in Northeast India and Chhattisgarh and in Jharkhand, Bihar. So it's around 30 million backyard poultry. Now, Indian poultry industry is growing 8 to 10% every year from last couple of years, and it will keep on growing because today poultry, meat, broiler meat and egg are the cheapest source of protein. But when we talk about agriculture growth is only 1 to 2%. So in the coming years, there is going to be a mismatch because soybean meal and maize, they are the main ingredients for poultry feed. When poultry is growing but agriculture growth is not there. Earlier there was a competition of maize only with the starch industry. Now ethanol industry is the main player. So the poultry people, they have to shift to millet also, sorghum to some quantity, broken rice also. But maize is the maize which is very important for poultry industry. Now the solution is only GM. When we talk about our neighboring countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, all these neighboring countries, they are allowing GM maize and GM soybean meal and soybeans. But here the government has some issues. Poultry industry, all associations have been meeting, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Husbandry Department, Environmental Ministry, Commerce Ministry. We have been meeting that you should allow GM corn. Now it's only a matter of time because since the cost goes high, cost of production goes high, so margins of farmers are squeezing. Poultry farmers today, they are losing money because the cost of broiler and cost of egg has gone high. So government, they have to, it's only a matter of time the GM crop has to come, and which will be very good for the farmers also. Second option is they have to increase the cost of production. For that, either like in the earlier session it was mentioned that sugarcane farmers will be shifting to corn. Even we have told Government of India, if you don't want to allow for a poultry industry for going, just allow the soybean meal GM or GM corn only for ethanol industry. You can give some quota. Earlier government allowed the import of non-GM corn, and that was in a very small quantity from Burma and from Ukraine. But the cost was again high. So only the GM crop is only answer where we can compete in the international market.
If I take your argument of GM crop, अगर हिंदुस्तान में हमने GM क्रॉप अलाउ किया तो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार में GM क्रॉप तो 16 रुपए है, यहाँ के किसान का 26 रुपए में मक्का कौन खरीदेगा? ये तो सभी इंपोर्ट करेंगे। आज हिंदुस्तान के किसान का मक्का इसलिए बिक रहा है क्योंकि वो नॉन GM है, उसको प्रीमियम मिल रहा है। जैसे ही आप GM इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे, चाहे सोयाबीन में या मक्के में या किसी और चीज में, your prices has to be at par with international market considering tariff plus the logistics cost. तो हिंदुस्तान का किसान आज अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार में 16 रुपए के आसपास मक्का है, आपके यहाँ पे 26 रुपए। हिंदुस्तान के किसान का मक्का कौन खरीदेगा? मैं तो इंपोर्ट करूंगा, सस्ता पड़ेगा। इस सिचुएशन में अगर ये होता है तो हिंदुस्तान के किसान को मक्का उगाने का क्या इंसेंटिव है? ये बड़ा सवाल बन जाएगा। Because then we are part of international market. फिर MSP आप दे नहीं पाएंगे। So considering this dynamics, कालवा साहब आप किसानों के साथ काम करते हैं and you are working with a lot of NGOs for development activities. आपको क्या लगता है कि अगर हमें पोल्ट्री सेक्टर को डेवलप करना है और भारत में किसानों को भी सही दाम मिलना है, तो क्या रास्ता है? GM technology is important to increase productivity, but how you are going to give a buffer prices at MSP level? नीचे तो आप कर नहीं सकते, पॉलिटिकल इशू। हिंदुस्तान में आने वाले समय में मुझे नहीं लगता कि किसी प्रधानमंत्री या कृषि मंत्री में इतनी हिम्मत होगी कहेगा मैं आज के बाद MSP नहीं दूंगा या घटाऊंगा, मुझे नहीं लगता। ऐसी स्थिति के अंदर रास्ता क्या है?
सवाल आपका बहुत सही है विजय। There always has to be a balanced approach. on one side there has been a continuous pressure from the poultry industry to import the GM. My submission here would be that what efforts, whether on behalf of the CLAFMA, AFI, or it could be the industry, sugar industry or ethanol industry, which is going to use maize in huge quantity. And we rightly discussed that there is a huge competition now, whether the poultry, that's for food, or ethanol, which is for fuel. Now, therefore, a lot of education is important to the farmer. Varietal development is important, where you can talk about that how do you improve the quality of the starch in the maize, what quality of seeds can you do, what kind of innovative practices can be brought in. My point is the element of research is important, the lab to land is important, and all this is going to take some time. Of course, we have a policy on ethanol that it is to be blended up to 20%. That's a dictate, it's fine. But then, now at least the research organizations of the Government of India, the poultry associations, organizations, and the ethanol industry, and most importantly the farmers, have to work hand in glove to see that the production, productivity, and the value of the maize which is produced, because you have limited land where maize can be cultivated, which is what we have been discussing, that there will be cannibalism, that if you do more of maize, then sugar cane or the pulses get replaced. So I'm not advocating that there should be cannibalism, but then the productivity, quality, research needs to be taken ahead, and in this the farmer has to be one of the major pillars in taking it. That's my idea.
Okay. Now, the last 10 minutes, I'm looking for an answer to the problem. Problem is very simple here. Demand for maize is increasing, so there is no market issue right now. There is a demand from poultry, there is a demand from ethanol, there is a demand from starch, and if we can do it from an international point of view, if the cost competitive, then what is the market? Considering that there is a market and there is a growing demand for maize, how to ensure profitability on one end to the farmers, and on the other hand, we are talking about affordable raw materials for the industry, those who are user industry. Now this is a chicken and egg story. And in the process, we are talking of trade liberalization in coming days. It means you have to compete internationally, and then there is a political economy of MSP. These are two important drivers. We have seen that continuously MSP is going up almost 3 to 4, 5%. If we continue to do that, then MSP will be somewhere about 25, 30 down the line by 2030. And if you look at the trend around the world in the last almost 10-15 years, the prices are almost stable in most of the commodities, barring the fluctuation during COVID time. If you read that out. Around the world, technology advancements are taking place with single point focus, how to improve the productivity and quality. So this is not going to be slowed down. With all these underlying factors, my common question to all my fellow panelists is, what are the two things, bullet points, which industry should do? We all give sermon to government and they have their own compulsion. What industry should do to ensure that there is a profitability for the farmer, and then industry can also have a sustainable raw material?
I would love to start here. Basically hand-holding and a holistic cumulative approach from all the consumers, be it ethanol industry, be it poultry sector. Poultry Federation of India last year started promoting cultivation of maize in non-maize growing areas. We started with a couple of acres, a couple of hectares, and now in Haryana we have reached more than 100 hectares of maize cultivation. So, if all the industries make it a point to have a cumulative effort in a single direction, instead of running in different directions and making different efforts, a single cumulative effort would yield much better results for the farmer, for all the industries, and it would be a win-win situation. Maize cultivation in Haryana today stands at more than 100 hectares, which was almost negligible around a few years ago, and this maize is different from the maize used in silage. So one such hand-holding that Poultry Federation of India did with the farmers is the need of the hour.
Good point. Sandeep ji, your thoughts?
Again, it's very interesting because I again reflect on the previous session that was done. So I think a very balanced approach in terms of the demand silos that we have, understanding the limitations on the supply side, because we have been debating, we have been discussing that the yield of Kharif corn should have grown very significantly by now, but that hasn't happened. But the area has increased, and that's what has helped the poultry industry quite a lot. But again, if you look at the month of February, I will not go very far away. February is a month where we have seen the highest inclusion of ethanol, 20% in this ESY. So despite that, we have seen a very decent prices for maize across India, because this was ably supported by the availability of broken rice and obviously other alternatives in the industry. So it's again, if we are able to balance the area of land under cultivation between the most demanded product or commodity, and for that government has to play a very crucial role, then I think India has more than enough land, more than enough manpower, and not to panic of, just to say that we need to import and, we don't have any other option. Because when you look at US, US is heavily subsidized agri-industry. And with our high MSP, we'll never be able to compete with the US imports. So that's like a very tough or challenging proposition for the government. So, but I think whatever resources we have to disposal, if we use it very judiciously, I think India will do pretty well even in the next 3 to 5 years. That's my take.
Allah sir, what is your thought?
I have 4 points to say. Research, where the industry and the government and the farmers to collaborate. Second important point is the quality. Now quality, when I say quality, it is about the quality of the maize which is produced. Second, the DDGS which is produced, because we've been talking about that the DDGS can be used whether it is rice or it is maize, but the quality do matter. Because the bird is what, 1.5 kg. Little bit here and there in terms of quality and the content of the protein makes all the difference. So whatever we'll be talking about, the source of protein becomes a question. So second pillar is the quality. Third is the collaboration. Because without collaboration and hand-holding with the government, this cannot be possible. And fourth, and the most important point, is the quality assurance. When I say quality assurance, it means the sustained quality of the DDGS is made available to the industry, wherein some standards have to be made, whether it is a corn DDGS, whether it's a rice DDGS, because what has been happening to the industry is they have started using it 4 to 5%, 7%, but the quality varies from batch to batch, which depends on the source of the makkah or the rice or any other source which is used. So if there is no standardization, the DDGS consumption may not increase, where globally it is as high as 15 to 20%. So these are my takes.
Interesting. Maize ji, what do you have to say? The mic please. Mic volume.
Can you hear me? I will say there are 3 points which I will take on to the government side. One is there should be an improvement on the seed quality. As we can see, the Bihar, the production has been in a better way if you compare to the other states like the MP and the Maharashtra. So on an average yield which you get in Bihar is approx 4 metric ton per hectare, whereas if you go to the Maharashtra or in MP, it's around 2.6 to 3 metric ton. So the improvement into the seed with the collaboration of the government so that the farmers should get the proper hybrid seed, the production will increase. That will be the first step. Second, along with that, as everyone is talking about the quality, I will say the quality will improve if we have the better post-harvest facility. Like now, each and every industry, specifically in the food or the poultry industry, we are talking about aflatoxin. So from where it comes, so many people don't have the idea about it. Like when we used to buy maize from the market, so people normally says we don't have the knowledge about the aflatoxin, but it is the crucial things which the farmers also used to have a knowledge about it, and the traders also. So how we can increase the knowledge of that to improve the quality of the seed or the quality of the product which we are providing. So normally it happens because of the post-harvest improper infrastructure. So these are the two things which I will say, which we suggest there should be no help from the government. That will helpful for the industry perspective.
See, as per Government of India data, productivity in Andhra and Karnataka is twice of Bihar. And Bihar has better irrigation facility than Karnataka and Andhra. So it's very interesting. You have seed which is performing almost 6 to 7 tons per hectare. Bihar is about 2 to 3. Now here the situation is, you have an irrigated area, production is less. There is another non-irrigated area, production is high. So whom to blame, the seed or the agronomy?
But at the same time, you also don't get the kind of a seed everywhere. If you see, there is a shortage of the seed which, like last week only we are getting the news in the newspaper that your Punjab MLA has been asking if you have the proper seed, there is a shortage of the seed for the spring for this new summer crop. So that clearly gives the indication that farmers are not having the proper. What has been available there, they are sowing. So how you can talk about the increase in the productivity? So there should be the sufficient.
There has to be proper seed replacement rate, so that every time you have a better seed to help. Interesting. Ricky, you are now operating countrywide in your integration. Any effort from IB Group to encourage in and around your feed mills to go for maca cultivation instead of transporting from all the way?
Yeah, that's right. In Chhattisgarh area and in also Madhya Pradesh, where IB Group they have their own plants, they are doing contract farming with the farmers, agricultural farmers, and they are providing all technical help, all input required, giving them good quality seed, and they are buying back and doing the contracts also for a year around maize farming.
Interesting. Now, my point to Franklin, this question is not for you. My question to you is that what is your game plan for India as USA? Because you are interested in dumping in India. You are with Trump's team. What we should be aware of? So if you can share some inside stories before April 2nd.
Sardanaji was smart enough to provide the genie out of the land. Apparently, that would be done on 2nd of April, Trump calls it as Celebration Day. So still some time for us to get liberated. Jokes apart, we as US Trade Promotion Councils are not here to jeopardize the interest of Indian farmers. No. While the delegations are in on exhaustive conversations from and with the government of India, we are trying to pull up a very symbiotic solution for both the ends with regards to market access. I will pull out just 2 points here. The government of India today wants the trade to go to further proliferate, wherein the US administration is counting on to reduce the trade deficit. Now these are 2 different points. The trade deficit between US and India lies somewhere around $46 billion today. And agri in itself is 10%, $4 billion. And this is the first time when agriculture is a subject topic that is being discussed between the Commerce Ministry and USDA. So still a lot of things to go on, something more and above my pay grade, but that's more or less it. Thank you.
So we got a flavor. And let me conclude after all these 3 things. The message is very clear. You see, both America or international markets are targeting India on both ends. They want to export maize to India and they also want to export chicken to India. Now it all depends upon what is the factor of production or productivity cost in either one. If we are expensive in maize production or MSP continue to go up, chances are that maize import will take place and Indian poultry industry will prefer to have imported maize to feed the birds. That is one aspect. GM, non-GM debate still in Supreme Court, and likelihood there will be some relaxation because I'm also party to that as an intervention application in Supreme Court. So we have to look from that. If we are not able to control the maize prices, then chances are that chicken import will take place. Because urbanized sector, 5-star hotels, city centers will have a logistics comfortably to have a container load and supply to the eateries, hotels, 5-star hotels and everywhere. So the domestic industry, I will say, it will not say overnight, but chances are that the loose meat or roadside butcheries will shrink to D-town or C-town and urban sectors because of municipal laws. They will stop slaughtering that. They will talk about hygiene. FSSAI will talk about hygiene. So packaged, processed poultry will move into organized segment and loose poultry or so-called wet poultry will move into unorganized sector. I can see there is going to be a shift down the line 3 to 5 years in poultry segment because of consumer behavior and price restructuring. All depends upon what is going to be the cost of feed means cost of maize. And if you continue to insist on MSP, be ready for import of poultry. If we are keeping it open and if poultry farmers are able to afford a low cost maize, poultry will continue to grow. So this is going to be a very classic situation that how price dynamics are going to play dynamics between a raw material import vis-a-vis a finished goods. So we will see how things are likely to unfold. Today one of the biggest barriers is customs duty, and that is why 2nd April becomes important. And I'm sure USEC is not openly telling it, but obviously their members are talking to Trump that we want Indian market. So we have to look from many interesting dynamics. So maybe next year, this segment will have many more interesting and I will say that insightful discussions with many more dimensions beyond just cost of maize or feed availability. So thank you very much to my fellow panelists. It was an interesting dynamics, and I'm sure this sector will attract much more political and economic interest after April. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you to all of you, and back to the organizer. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Through this forum, I would like to take an opportunity on behalf of the President Poultry Federation of India. I would like to extend an invitation to other associations and ethanol producers to work in collaboration and reach a solution so that it's a win-win situation for the farmer, for the poultry sector and for the ethanol producers here.
I think it's a good suggestion. It's a very sensible approach. If all maize consumer industry associations, if they can sit together, instead of going with a conflicting resolution to policymakers and they then further add to confusion, how to protect Indian farmers or maize farmers and how to ensure availability of affordable maize in India. If a joint initiative can be there, I think it will be win-win for everyone. Thank you, Rahul, for the suggestion. Very interesting.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question to the respected panelists over here. I am Rajiv from a company called Grain Technique, and we provide solutions for actually controlling aflatoxins, ochratoxins, and mycotoxins in grain. Now,
the next session is on maize. We will discuss that. Next session is on maize. Yeah, we will take up.
So the request is we can have this question in the next session.
Next session is dedicated to maize. We will take it up.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Vijay Sadhana will be here with us on stage, and we're looking forward, in fact, to have that question answered. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for all our esteemed panelists. I'd like to take the pleasure of inviting Mr. Amar Sharma from Patanjali Foods to kindly join us up on stage and present each of our panelists with a token of appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Amar Sharma, for joining us. And we have a token of appreciation firstly to our moderator, Mr. Vijay Sadhana. Let's have a nice big warm round of applause.
once again Mr. Amar Sharma. Let's have a round of applause. Mr. Vijay Sadhana, sir, please do step forward, and let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite Mr. Franklin Manuel to please step forward. Let's have a round of applause, please. I'd like to invite Mr. Rajesh Reddy to kindly step forward. I'd like to invite Mr. Rahul Khatri to kindly step forward, please. Thank you so very much. I'd like to invite Mr. Sandeep Guha to kindly step forward. Thank you. I'd like to invite Dr. Anup Kalra. Thank you so very much, sir. I'd like to invite Mr. Ricky Thapar to kindly step forward. And finally, I'd like to invite Mr. Mahesh Naik to kindly step forward. Thank you so very much. And thank you so much, Mr. Amar Sharma. I request you all to come together for the group photograph, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please do join in with a nice warm round of applause. It's been an absolutely fabulous session. Thank you once again to all our esteemed panelists. And thank you, Mr. Amar Sharma. Thank you, sir. I'd like to request Mr. Vijay Sadhana to make himself comfortable on stage. It's his session once again. Can we have the music off, please? Thank you once again, our esteemed panelists. As we have Mr. Vijay Sadhana present on stage, he's ready for a marathon session. It's the next panel discussion that he will be moderating. And I'm amazed by how you can actually touch up different topics in such rapid succession, sir. Our next point of discussion is Maize and Millet 2.0, Policy Framework, Technology and Supply Chain. The next frontier of Maize and Millet lies in the intersection of policy, technology and supply chain innovation, and this session will bring together leading experts to discuss frameworks shaping the industry's future. Moderating this session, we have Mr. Vijay Sadhana up on stage, and I'd like to take the pleasure of inviting our esteemed panelists to join us. I would like to welcome Mr. Franklin Manuel once again to join us up on stage, Country Lead USSEC India. Thank you so very much, Franklin. Please do join us once again. This time you can I have the panelists up on stage, please? I'd like to welcome Mr. Naveen Kumar, Head Trade and Structured Finance Origination and Supply Chain Solutions, South Asia, Olam Agri. Let's welcome Mr. Naveen Kumar. Sir, please do join us. I'd like to welcome Mr. Vishesh Rana, Manager Sales and Business Development, Maize. Please do join us up on stage, sir. I'd like to invite Dr. Anjani Kumar, Senior Research Fellow, Principal Scientist, International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI. I'd like to once again invite Mr. Sandeep Guha, South Asia Commercial Leader Distribution for Bunge. Please do join us, sir. Once again, thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Rupesh Sugandhi, Head of Raw Material Purchase at Rocket India. Please do join us up on stage. I'd like to invite Mr. S.K. Shukla, President, UP Distillers Association. Please do join us. And I'd like to invite Mr. Arpit Jain, Senior Vice President, Energy Procurement Grains at IB Group. Please do join us up on stage. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ron. What I'll do is, again, for about 3 minutes, I'll just do the wrapping up with highlights of what is likely to happen from the technology point of view, because in this session, we have discussed since morning and yesterday about the pricing, consumption, and a whole lot of things. But because of various dynamics which are taking place, what are the new technologies which are likely to happen, supply chain issues, how the world trade is likely to impact. I will just put up about 3-4 minutes presentation with highlights, and then we will start on a discussion that how Indian poultry industry or the maize consumer industry is going to be impacted because of this. As an earlier session, we were discussing about quality issues, so we will see what all can be done with that.
Once again, friends, I'm just going to put up a recap to what is likely to happen in this segment, and then we will see how Indian industry can adopt these technologies, because more and more globalization, consumer demands, quality issues are going to impact all of us. Again, this session is not going to focus on pricing or the commercial side, but more of a technological aspect. Demand, we have seen that there is likely to be demand of maize as well as millets. Now, why I'm saying millets also part of feed, because when the maize prices goes up, industry look for alternates. And when we are looking for alternates of maize, or for example, in many cases, soya meal, today we are talking about DDGS, then there is a lot of technological interventions to make the whole feed more palatable and performance oriented for the livestock segment. So when we are looking for alternate raw materials, technological interventions goes up. So that we have to keep in mind. Again, there are going to be trade barriers. When we are talking about technology, there is already a pressure. India should adopt GM or not non-GM. It has a positive side, it has a negative side. There is going to be very complex balance on it. Not only the GM per se, there is a pressure from US also on the labeling issues, which we call it non-tariff barriers. Whether we should label product should be GM or non-GM, this is again from a consumer's point of view. So there is another dynamics which will emerge. We are talking about climate change, productivity issues, insect behavior is changing, crop dynamics are changing, climate is changing. So should we look for alternate crops, alternate seed varieties to ensure productivity? This is going to be another challenge which has to be only addressed through technological intervention. Policies cannot change the productivity. So that we have to be very clear. It has a direct implication on price volatility. We are seeing into this. And then we are talking about supply chain disruption. One of the major issues, if you look from Trump's tariff agenda is, and on 26th March, when he imposed 25% on automobile, just read out the fact sheet of White House. It says because of COVID, there was a disruption in supply chain which impacted the overall economic growth of America. We don't want further supply chain disruptions. It means indirectly every country is talking about self-reliance. When every country is talking about self-reliance, then where is the scope for global trade? We have to factor that also in political economy. And then we are talking about regulatory compliance. In earlier session, we discussed about the quality of maize because of aflatoxin and other things. Now, because of climate change, pollution issues, animal welfare, social standards, whole lot of new dimensions which are likely to emerge. I will not go into detail. There are Government of India policies. You all must be aware what are the policies for maize and millets. So I will not go into that. I will come back to again the opportunities for India. Today we are talking about threat from imports, but if you try to flip the game and if you increase the world level of productivity and supply chain and quality issues in place, India being in agroclimatic conditions, we can become one of the big players as well. Instead of defensive, it can be offensive as well. So we have to look at exports. When chicken can come all the way from Brazil and America to Asia, why India cannot sell chicken from India to Asia? we have to look at this issue very seriously. Okay, why their cost of production is low, minus subsidy, keeping subsidy factor for the time being out. Why India cannot export chicken, we have to factor that as well. Technological advances in trade efficiencies, we are looking into those supply chains. Sustainable farming issues, value-added products, the whole ecosystem in Indian poultry industry is wet market, roadside slaughtering. On the other side, the value addition market is growing at the rate of 20 to 30%, whereas the wet market is growing anything between 8 to 10%. So why investment is not coming into the way it should be for one of the biggest consumer market in the world, this is another area to look at it. And then we are talking about improved trade agreements. Now, what will happen with the reciprocal trade issues, we have to look from that angle. As far as technology is concerned, in agriculture, we discussed in various forums that new IT technology, space technology, traceability, whole lot of things are impacting agriculture. It is also going to impact both agriculture, means maize, millets, as well as the poultry or the consumption industry. I'll not go into detail, but definitely we are talking about GPS guided machinery. We are talking about labor issues, so that is one aspect, precision agriculture. We are talking about drone and remote sensing for disease pest control. And then we are also talking about AI and machine learning for precision agriculture point of view. GM, again a big debate, but within GM there are developments taking place now. GM generally happens when you introduce a foreign gene into a native seed. But the new Casper technology which is there, it says that there is no need to introduce a foreign gene. Existing gene you can either add, delete or shift the locations. If that happens, then the debate on GM will go down. And that is why the new term which is emerging in the world trade is bioengineered crop instead of GM crop, which is more politically sellable, less controversial. So bioengineered crop instead of GM is more acceptable, and new technologies are going to facilitate that, and how it is going to impact we will see. Then biotech trades, which is important again from a GM point of view. And then we are talking about stacking of trade. It becomes beneficial but also controversial when farmer says, I don't need 2 trades, but the seed company says, we will give you 2 trades and charge for 2 trades. I don't need. Then why I should pay? But the seed company says, no, we are adding 2 trades, you have to pay for 2. So these are another political and legal issues one has to address. Again, issues of drought tolerant, which is happening. We are talking about heat-resistant hybrids because of climate change today. At the same time, nitrogen-efficient varieties we have to look at, like pulses we talk about nitrogen-efficient crop. Can we do the same efficiency in maize and millets? That is another focus on. And then bio-fortified crops. If we are doing it, maybe other overheads will go down. Smart irrigation and water management, a lot of sensors are going to be in application, whether it is tractor mounted, soil inserted, climate issues, whole lot of dimensions, because sensors are becoming cheaper. And if that data can be directly fed into computers, and which becomes the controlling part of your irrigation supply chain, I think that will improve the water efficiency. Drip irrigation with AI monitoring, as I am saying, based on the sensor data, and then we are talking about automated pivotal irrigation. Difficult for India because our farms are small, but there will be definitely alternate means to look from that angle. In order to counter, if you look into the new regulations which are coming from Europe, Japan, China, Korea, whole lot of developed world, they are virtually not giving approval to the red triangle molecules or orange triangle molecules. All the new developments which are taking place is on the biological side. Now on the biological side, Government of India has taken initiative, but it is too early because research is not happening the way it should happen in India. So this is another important area to focus on and a huge opportunity.